Black Ops Gulf War. That's the name that's getting thrown out there right now in regards to Treyarch's next upcoming title, presumed to be in 2024. Now, there's some reasoning here behind that, and we'll dive into that in this video, but we're also discussing this to serve as an updated discussion from what we'd previously discussed to fill in some gaps here where there were previously big question marks. As we go along, drop your thoughts below. Are you looking forward to anything in particular in regards to COD 2024? Anything you hope to see? Do you like the sound of the rumored time period of not necessarily near future, but near past? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, you find it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, do be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay updated with all things Modern Warfare 2, Warzone, and even COD 2024 content here from time to time as new information comes out. If you're interested in staying up to date with all of that, I'd love to have you in the community. For now, though, let's revisit a little bit more about what we learned for COD 2024. Now, this information, of course, comes from Reality UK, who's been data mining like crazy the Warzone mobile alpha. Now, I'm still absolutely blown away that there's this much here actually in the alpha of Warzone mobile. You figure this stuff would have been hidden, but alas, we ended up seeing a ton of stuff already leak out for Modern Warfare 2 and of course now for COD 2024. Those leaked items for COD 2024 included some weapon listing, but more importantly to the first part of this discussion here, a couple of concept images for what is presumed to be multiplayer maps, though it could just realistically be concept art for COD 2024 overall. But the one that really kickstarts everything here is a map that was called Pillage, something that it looked like, as we described in the last video, soldiers entering what looked like a palace, like a Nia Palace from Modern Warfare 2019, and they were navigating these blown out hallways and entryways through the walls of the palace. But the one thing that we missed here out of that initial discussion was a painting on the background wall. This was something that actually gives us way more details and way more insight than we initially thought. We actually thought that the other map that was leaked here, that would give us the most insight into the time period and what we could end up seeing in regards to the setting for COD 2024, but there was a painting that was spotted that was a portrait of Saddam Hussein depicted as the historical figure Nebuchadnezzar. Now, in real life, Hussein saw himself as that modern reincarnation of who was the previous king of Babylon. He even ordered the reconstruction of Babylon, so he saw himself as quite the figure historically. But this painting, by the way, it's real. You can look it up, you can read into it, there's a lot that goes into it. But this painting was something that was owned by Saddam Hussein, our first little teaser there. But what's crazier is that that painting in this concept art, we mentioned it previously likened to a Nia Palace, but it turns out the concept art actually utilizes the exact palace that Saddam Hussein was building when trying to rebuild Babylon. This was Saddam Hussein's palace, which is where many are now pulling from that derived Gulf War setting. And honestly, that update kind of confirms it for me. When we see the actual palace of a major player like that in the military history, there's no doubt in my mind that's confirming at the very least that we're going to have some play in the Gulf War and the 90s. We'll touch on that shortly. There's rumors that we'll see some time jumping at some point, but for now, we'll take it one step at a time. So let's take a look at this and what we could see plausibly for maybe characters returning, maybe our sort of time anchor here, if we can call it that. If it does indeed take place in the 90s and early 2000s, there's a little bit that we can play around with here. One anchor point, like we mentioned, could be 1993. In the game files, we did see that there was leaked Mogadishu and references to that, which, for those unfamiliar, that's the Battle of Mogadishu in 93, the Black Hawk Down incident. If we're using that and we do actually see it set, then there could be some potential characters returning, some maybe not so much. I mean, Adler, he'd be aged 56 in 93, Woods would be 62 in 93, Mason would be 60, Hudson would be, well, he'd be dead after the events of Suffer With Me in 89, which also leads to David Mason, who would only be 14 as of 1993, if we're using that as our target, so he'd be too young for anything. So it's possible that we see some returning characters, admittedly. I do think that Adler from Cold War would be an awesome bet to return here. I think they made a really good character out of him, in my opinion. That's one of the few characters I think outside of the legacy era, the golden era of Call of Duty that usually people think about, like COD 4 to Black Ops 2, one of those few characters that really stood out and I think could stand on his own. So I'd be more than happy if they end up bringing him back. I do think, though, if we see it set in the 90s, we'll have to address some of the stuff that happened in the 80s post-Cold War campaign and post-Black Ops 2 flashbacks, because there's a lot that would go into play there, in my opinion, while also making great use of stuff that we'd have on deck for conflict as a part of the Gulf War. Again, coming back to it, the Battle of Mogadishu, the Black Hawk Down incident, so there's a lot that Treyarch could absolutely do with it. Though, realistically, though, they could just take it in a historical fiction type of way, an altered history approach like we saw with Black Ops Cold War. Very well could see it followed up as a Cold War II, but branded as Black Ops Gulf War or something like that, where we do end up trying to track down more Perseus operatives, that the organization survived through the years and rooted itself perhaps in the Gulf now at this point. There's a lot that they could do with it. The only question I think that comes down to this now, based off of this concept art, if it holds up, is will we see any time jumping? It's almost not a Black Ops game if we don't see time jumping. Black Ops 4 is the only game that didn't have any time jumping officially because, of course, there was no campaign with that, but even the backstories that we ended up getting, the sort of subplot line for Black Ops 4, even that had some time jumping. Even World at War, going back even further to the canon storyline, but independent of the Black Ops name, even World at War had time jumping. So I would imagine we do see some of it. So that rumor of maybe seeing some near future stuff as well, probably can't write that off just yet. But I am very excited to see where this could go, what we end up seeing as time progresses and what is revealed to us. But outside of that, again, we also saw leaks for a ton of different weapons that we already discussed once again. Things like the M16, the Colt Commando, which in Black Ops Cold War was the XM4, the AK-74, the SG-550, the AS Val, the SG-542, that being the Krig from Black Ops Cold War by comparison, the FAL, the KSP, the Combat Knife, the H&K P30, the USP-40, the USP-9, the Mossberg 500, the Spaz 12, which was the Gallo in Cold War by comparison, the Tech 9, the MP5, the Dragunov, and a couple of other things. We also will be apparently seeing the introduction of battle rifles, the different caliber builds of weapons, that deviation between assault rifles and battle rifles as established in real life. So curious to see how that will all play out, but I don't know, man, it is pretty interesting. I'm very curious to see how this all comes together. I hope that Treyarch has enough time here with all of this. Of course, it is reported that we will see Treyarch working on the ranked mode as rumored right now for Modern Warfare 2, so that's something that honestly I don't think would detract from too much of their upcoming project. The teams that work on that are much more compartmentalized, much smaller by comparison. The Zombies team and everything like that, that would be something that if they were working on a Zombies mode for Modern Warfare 2, that's when you might be able to say, okay, this is a little too much here with that, though even that team is small by comparison to the multiplayer team, the campaign team, and all that kind of stuff. So with full level heads going forward here in another 2 years to work on this, I definitely think we could see something nice here out of this. And coming back to it, with this game being on the modified IW9, IW10 engine at that point, it's going to be really cool to see, I think. I'm very excited to see what Treyarch can cook up in regards to a game on this engine. I think it could absolutely look beautiful. I know Treyarch is kind of known for having that cartoony feel to it, but taking a hand at that photorealistic thing, I think they could cook up something really nice. But anyways, that's where we're at here at this. Wanted to fill you guys in a little further with some of these details that we learned about since we last talked about this, but I'd love to get your thoughts. Are you looking forward to something that could be Black Ops Gulf War? Maybe not so much. Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 2, Warzone, and maybe even some COD 2024 content in the future. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.